Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth, not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast, hosted by Seth Andrews.
Random thing to start the conversation today. Have you ever been an adult and you heard a song from your youth? You were a teenager or maybe even a young 20-something, and you heard a song that you didn't realize at the time was really kind of wrong. I mean, you listen to it for the first time in your head, you decode the lyrics and you're going, wait a minute. And I'll tell you, I heard a song the other day and I thought, I cannot believe I used to sing this song. I used to sing this song all the time, and it's just so freaking creepy. So I got curious and I started doing some digging. And I'm shocked at how many of the songs that you and I have become accustomed to that are kind of sketch. And I'm just going to roll down a little list that I made. The Macarena is kind of a jacked up song. The song's about a woman named Macarena whose boyfriend is on deployment with the army. So to pass the time, she spends time with his two best friends. But don't you worry about my boyfriend. He's a boy whose name is Victorino. I don't want him, couldn't stand him. He was no good, so Now, come on, what was I supposed to do? He was out of town and his two friends were fine. What? The Macarena. I've seen this song at children's parties. Walk This Way by Aerosmith. Now, I heard this one a while back and it was brought to my attention years ago, but it's still backstroke lover always hiding neath the covers till I talk to your daddy. He said, you ain't seen nothing till you're down on a muffin. It's about a boy who's lonely and he feels awkward and he is masturbating. And his dad catches him and explains that, son, one day you're going to experience the real thing. One day he encounters the cheerleader along with, quote, her sister and her cousin, and then he has a glorious sexual experience. I'm sorry. We just sang along because it was a fun song with a great hook. Walk this way, right? You're walking this way. No, it's about a guy who's jerking off and gets caught by his dad who says, oh, you should see the real thing. Wait till you get your first muffin. I'm sorry. My whole life has been a lie. I got a few more here as we wait for people to call in with random stuff. Fleetwood Mac, Tusk. I didn't realize tusk is slang for penis. And apparently Stevie Nicks didn't know either. Right? She had no idea as she was singing the song for Fleetwood Mac. Bryan Adams, Summer of 69. I always thought, the year 69. No, they're talking about the sexual position. 69. I should have seen that one coming, if you'll pardon the expression. Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer. You could have a steam train if you just lay down your tracks or show me round your fruit cage, 'cause I will be your honeybee. Open up your fruit cage where the fruit is as sweet as can be. And of course, the sledgehammer is a total metaphor. It's totally phallic. ZZ Top, pearl necklace. I'm embarrassed. I'm not even going to describe it. because now that you're listening, you're like, oh, okay. Not an actual pearl necklace, right? You sing this shit all the time, especially when you're younger and you have no idea. It's naughty. And sometimes really inappropriate. Like there's naughty, which is just fine. You can sing a song that's all about whatever, getting down and dirty, and it's consensual. And, well, sometimes that's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes they just get wrong, inappropriate, creepy, even predatory. And I'm going to get to those. I was struck by how many of the songs that I grew up with had the theme of I can't live if living is without you. Like the Harry Nilsson song. I can't live if living is without you. What you are saying is that if you break up with me, I am gonna kill myself. When they sing it, it sounds romantic. We're bonded for life. My life has meaning because of you. But if you really dissect it, I will off myself if you ever leave me. Remember Clay Aiken from American Idol? He sang that song, If I Was Invisible, and I watched you in your room. That's creepy. It's inappropriate. Like, what if he had changed the lyrics to say, if I was invisible, or I had installed surveillance cameras in your room? Who would be humming along to that little ditty? I doubt very many. And here's the song that really got me on this track. It was Winger. She's only 17. It's an older man who is talking about how, wow, she'll give you love like you've never seen, or I'll give you love like you've never seen, right? Daddy says she's too young, but she's old enough for me. 17. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's creepy. Still play it on the radio all the time. She's only 17. I mean, the Me Too movement. Imagine that song released yesterday. We would have seen it through a different lens. And I get sometimes you're pushing buttons, and I know how much of rock and roll is about getting laid. That's the nature of the beast. Human beings have always loved to sing about getting laid. And I understand it. And I support it. Sing about it. But I mean, 17? I used to give her love like I've never seen. She's only 17. Daddy says she's too young, but she's old enough for me. It's creepy. 1977. Kiss's sixth studio album, Love Gun, had the song Christine 16. It was the highest charting song at the time from that band. It explores Gene Simmons being obsessed with a 16-year-old girl. Christine 16, I don't usually say things like this to girls your age, but when I saw you coming out of the school that day I knew I've got to have you. Ted Nugent, jailbait. Ted Nugent, he's just, I can't think of the adjectives for Ted Nugent anyway. But here are 4 lines from Jailbait. Well, I don't care if you're just 13, you look too good to be true. I just know that you're probably clean. There's one little thing I gotta do to you. Who even thinks like that? 13? Grateful Dead, 1967. Good morning, little schoolgirl. Can I come home with you? Tell your mama and your papa I'm a little schoolboy too. Come on now, pretty baby. Just can't help myself. You're so young and pretty. I don't need nobody else. Some creeper wants to follow the kid home from school and say, hey, parents, I'm a little schoolboy too. And then what? They go play in the back bedroom? What's your take on it? Actually, I probably already know your take. I don't deny that art is supposed to push buttons. It's supposed to elicit a response. And okay, fine, I'll include pop and rock music in art because it usually is, unless you're, Ted Nugent. But we can pretty much all agree that being proud of being hot for a 13-year-old, that's just wrong. What was it Maya Angelou said? When we know better, we do better. So we have evolved our thinking, and we must do better. Anyway, I was just having that thought. Let's talk to you about whatever you're thinking today. 617, what's your name, or what do I call you?
You can call me Selfless Self. Hi, how's it going, Seth?
Selfless Self. You just go by a handle?
Yeah, I'm in a national protest movement that's protesting Scientology, and since they dox and attack and fair game all of us, many of us go by handles to protect ourselves, our livelihoods, our loved ones, that kind of thing.
Fair gaming is pretty terrible stuff for those who don't know what it is. The Church of Scientology declares that you're an enemy of the church and all bets are off. They can go and ruin your life, essentially without rules. Leah Remini and others have done a lot of work exposing fair game, so I totally understand your anonymity. What do you want to talk about? The Church of Scientology, I'm guessing?
Yeah, the Church of Scientology, definitely, and about this growing national protest movement that's appearing in very many major cities of the United States and around the world right now that's reaching a level equal to the outbreak of anonymous anti-Scientology protests about 15 years ago. There are some large live streamers out there in Los Angeles that have been covering this. The person that kind of kicked it off in LA was Audit the Streets LA, or William Good, Streets LA, who does First Amendment auditing and just came across Scientology by happenstance and turned his focus upon the Church of Scientology, especially on Hollywood Boulevard, and then kind of trained up a bunch of streamers around him. And it's a bunch of kind of big channels that have shut down the training or information center on Hollywood Boulevard and a bunch of other locations just because they're pointing a camera in their direction. And we've been able to shut down their business as well here in Austin, and they close their doors, they close their blinds, and they take their table with the e-meter out on the sidewalk, they bring it inside, and they cower inside. We've seen their management reports. We've basically driven their business down to zero. And this is happening in New York, in Boston, in St. Louis, in Phoenix, in London. This protest movement is spreading, and they're becoming more and more desperate.
I was talking to Tony Ortega of Underground Bunker, does a lot of work exposing the Church of Scientology. As I understand it, even though they are well wired into business and have a ton of money, there were only probably 12,000 members.
Yeah, there are various estimates, but I think the top number of active members, if we're to be extremely generous, would be around 30. So in between 30 and 20, and they're expanding in some places where they're decreasing in membership in the United States. They're making a huge push in Asia. They've just tried to open up a number of orgs, what they call, these training centers. A new one in Paris just opened, and the ones in Asia are very, very active. South Africa as well is a hotbed, and they're trying to expand in Africa as well, because it seems like their days in the United States are somewhat numbered. But they are this desperate for membership that it was about 10 years ago, 2014, when I first became aware that the Church of Scientology had linked arms with the Nation of Islam and are trying to share membership. And I was an audio engineer in Boston. I worked, unfortunately, and said I would quit if I had to work another event like this. A Nation of Islam event in 2014 that was basically leadership of NOI telling their membership that they must get Scientology audited.
Well, that's something I'm interested in. How can we help you today? Are we raising awareness about the effort to try to move them back into the shadows?
Absolutely. So there are a number of channels on YouTube right now of survivors of Scientology, people that were born in, that spent most of their lives in the Church of Scientology, that have been able to tell their stories for the first time in a kind of unadorned manner outside of the confines of a cable show. However good the Aftermath show was for getting the word out, this is much, much more personal and unguarded. The community is known as SPTV, and that stands for Suppressive Persons Television. And there's a new foundation, a charitable foundation that's been organized to try to assist people who are trying to leave the cult. It's the SPTV Foundation.
Okay, well, I did a quick Google search and it popped up. Actually, at the top was Samaritan's Purse. But once I got past that, I saw the SPTV site. So I would encourage people, including myself, I'll see if I can go and do some homework and get tooled up on that. But thanks for bringing it to our attention. And, Scientology it's important. It hasn't been on our front burner with all of the Christian nationalism on the rise, et cetera, but it's still a critical issue doing great harm, and it's something we need to know more about. So thanks for telling us, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Charles from Central Illinois at area code 217. Are you with me?
Yes, I am.
What can I do for you, my friend? What's on your mind?
Okay, a few songs that you missed, not quite appropriate. Captain Jack by Billy Joel and Dancing with Mr. Brownstone by Guns N' Roses. Both have the same thing. They're both songs about heroin, addiction, and beating it.
Captain Jack will get you high tonight and take you to your special island. Captain Jack will get you by tonight. Just a little push and you'll be smiling. Well, I'm not trying to give drugs a pass, but I think that's in my mind in a different category than I want to do a 13-year-old.
Gary Pickett and the Union, Little Schoolgirl, You Too Young to Me, Go Away Little Girl.
I'll have to look that one up. Gary Puckett and the Union, a song called Little Schoolgirl?
Yeah.
Forgive me for not knowing who Gary Puckett is. Does that make me just a pod person? Was I brought up in a shell? Like this Gary Puckett?
No, this is from back like the early 60s.
Oh, okay, because I was born in 68. I'm going to check out Gary Puckett and see what I can see here about the lyrics, okay?
Okay.
Thanks for calling. We'll see you later. Gary Puckett and the Union. Young girl, get out of my mind. My love for you is way out of line. Better run, girl. You're much too young, girl. Okay, well, that qualifies. What's the obsession with girls that are underage? Creepy. Lots to do. Lots more show to come. Short break. Stand by. We continue with your calls next. If you haven't checked out my second broadcast, we just hit 1 million downloads. So that's my first big milestone. Well, I guess second. We've got 300 plus shows, like 301 or 302. So a couple of big milestones, and the feedback's been good. Subscribe on all major podcast apps. True Stories with Seth Andrews. I think you're going to love it. Here's a question not about song lyrics, but about what is an expression of love and affection and dedication, and when does that spill into inappropriate behavior and even stalking? And this takes me to the 1989 film Say Anything. This is a beloved movie of my youth, John Cusack, Ione Skye. And there's this scene where they'd broken up and he was heartbroken. They were both heartbroken. And so at some point he stands outside her house under her window and he's holding up the boom box and you hear Peter Gabriel's song In Your Eyes. And people are split. Is this an expression of his heartbreak and how much his life is empty without her and how he genuinely does love her and wants to be the person she spends the rest of her life with? Or is it a massive boundary violation as he's essentially, is he stalking? If someone did that, if your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend showed up under your window and held up a boombox and was playing, I don't know, any song, would you be calling the cops? Would you be like, stalker, inappropriate, I feel unsafe? And probably because I'm biased, I like John Cusack, I like Ione Skye, I have a soft spot for the movie. I tend to give this one a pass, but I'm not sure I'm right. What's your opinion about it? Also, another discussion on Baby, It's Cold Outside. Of course, I'm talking about, it's been done several times, but I think the one most people know is the 1949 Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Jordan version. Dean Martin and Marilyn Maxwell did a version as well. I really can't stay, she says. But baby, it's cold outside, he responds. I've got to go away. But baby, it's cold outside. This evening has been hoping that you'd drop in. So very nice. I'll hold your hands. They're just like ice. My mother will start to worry. Beautiful, what's your hurry? My father will be pacing the floor. Listen to the fireplace roar. So really, I'd better scurry. Beautiful, please don't hurry. But maybe just a half a drink more. Put some records on while I pour. The neighbors might think, baby, it's bad out there. Say, what's in this drink? No cabs to be had out there. I wish I knew how. Your eyes are like starlight now. To break this spell, I'll take your hat. Your hair looks swell. I ought to say no, 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 sir. Mind if I move in closer? At least I'm gonna say that I tried. What's the sense of hurtin' my pride? When you hear it as music, it just sounds like a playful back and forth between adults. You know, we see that. I'm not talking about legitimate protest, even a mild protest. I mean those situations where they're kind of winking at each other. Oh, come on, make me stay. I mean, in music form, that's the vibe that I always felt. But when you read the lyrics, it sounds a little sinister. What's your take on Baby, It's Cold Outside? Jennifer on Facebook mentioned Stop, Stop, Stop by the Hollies. She said, I thought it was about someone who just couldn't keep himself from dancing wildly. As an adult, I realized it was about a stalker assaulting a dancer. I looked this one up. Closer, closer, she is getting nearer. Soon she'll be in reach. As I enter into a spotlight, she stands lost for speech. Stop, stop, stop all the dancing, give me time to breathe. Stop, stop, stop all the dancing, or I'll have to leave. Now I hold her, people are staring, don't know what to think, and we struggle knocking over tables, spilling all the drinks. Can't they understand that I want her? Happens every week. Heavy hand upon my collar, throws me in the street. Yeah, that's inappropriate. Guy's watching a stripper, decides he's going to put his hands on her, force himself on her, and a bouncer tosses him out of the bar. Yeah, that's inappropriate. Back to the phones. I've got Matt 770. Matt, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Appreciate it, Seth. First of all, I just echo a lot of callers that call in. I appreciate your voice and just all that it's meant to me over the last several years. Just to give you a little context, I was raised an evangelical Christian and worked in the church for most of my life, from college to internships and all that good stuff. As a youth pastor is typically where you start out, and I worked at an evangelical mega church until about 4 years ago. It was kind of I would say, an atheist working in the church for the last 2 or 3 years there. And I kind of wanted to get your take, and just kind of know this is something that others struggle with. I think one of the biggest struggles that I face at this point in my life, I'm 42 years old, but one of the biggest struggles I face right now is just finding community. And, I think being a part of the church community was always just ready-made. It's kind of, it was just kind of plug and play. Where did you find community? How do you look for that? How do you establish that post church? I think that's, it feels like everything's kind of been stripped away, and it's really hard to find that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. There are so many different types of groups. You'll find the atheist. In fact, atheist will be in the name. whether it's the City X atheist community and they just throw it out there, or they're the secular society. I'm speaking at Secular Hub in Denver, Colorado. That's coming up. We've got humanist organizations. Oasis is probably my favorites. They've got chapters all around the United States where they bring people in, and it's come as you are. We're not going to go hard and beat you over the head with a baseball bat about why religion is stupid, but we are going to be pro-humanity and pro-science, and we're going to have food and fun and structure and community and activities for everybody. And that would be probably where I would start you to, especially in Atlanta. I would think there would hopefully be an Oasis chapter in Atlanta. So you might start with a Google search there, or reach out to, I think Oasis is a national organization. Maybe they can lead you in the right direction. In the comments, help me out if I've missed something. But they're, I think, my favorite temperature for people who are in your situation. I don't want to go in and hear religion is fucking stupid for 90 minutes every time I see everybody. I don't want to go in and hear the negativity and about Christian nationalism and about why everything's screwed up and people are idiots. That's not why I'm here. I want to belong. I want to have friends. I want to express love and affection and goodness. I want to make memories and live life. That's the kind of community I want. I'm guessing that's what you're looking for, right, Matt?
Exactly. I think you nailed it. I'll definitely Google Oasis and see if I can find something nearby that. That's a great suggestion. And you've played a huge role just in kind of helping me process, and especially, having been a pastor. I think you were a pastor as well, right?
I was in Christian radio. I was in the ministry, but only from a broadcasting point of view. I wasn't actually a pastor.
Okay.
So, but I guess some people say I have a pastor sound about me. Go figure. You and I should probably take it on the road, Matt. We could go out and be the ex-pastors, right? On tour. That'd be a lot of fun. Much love to you and your wife. You guys hang in there. Okay. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it.
347. Hi. Who's this?
Hello. You can call me Personer.
Person?
Personer. Person with the ER at the end of it.
What's on your mind?
So from what I understand, and from that last call, Matt used to be a pastor. Did you believe in God when you were a pastor?
I wasn't a pastor.
Or, sorry, a radio host?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I called you pastor because I really like the idea of ex-pastor radio show going on the road. So.
Ex-evangelical. Yeah, I was a true believer for a long time.
Okay. So what made you shift from, like, what would be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak? Because there could be a whole myriad of things that caused you to disbelieve. But what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made you say, you know what, I'm done with this God thing. Let me just get out of here.
I wrote a book that tells the story. It's called Deconverted. There's also a video where I tell my story. It's called Seth Andrews From Religion to Reason. You can find it on YouTube. But there were probably 100 things that caused me to start to tap on the glass. It took me a while to get out, but I finally made it.
So, like, and maybe you want to keep it in the book, but
no, I'm not trying to sell the book. I'll tell you just in a nutshell. My audience has heard my story so often. I want to make sure I'm not boring them. But yeah, let's you and I talk for just a second. There was the death of a Christian recording artist. We used to play a guy named Rich Mullins on the radio. He sang a song called Awesome God. He was horribly killed in a car accident in 1997. And I was charged to go and comfort the audience that God had called him home. And it just felt wrong. I became really cognizant of the fact that we were coloring in our own happy ending. My best friend came out to me as gay. I was blatantly anti-gay because the Bible. It cost us our friendship for a year until I finally came to my senses and realized he was a beautiful person. 9/11 kind of rattled my cage, and doing video work for hundreds of churches all around the country. I was sort of in each one of these different denominations, different styles, different pastors, different sermons, different interpretations, and I became kind of a forensic experiment. And all the house of cards finally started to fall down around me. But it was a long process. But that's it in a nutshell.
Right. So it seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems like it was more connected to the religion rather than God himself.
Are you a believer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of people
like 100%
play this
Christian,
card. Hang on.
religious.
A lot of people play this card and they say it's not a religion, it's a relationship. Or maybe they take it a step further.
Religion.
Hang on. I'm going to finish this sentence and then I'm going to give you plenty of bandwidth, okay? They might say, who hurt you? Or you didn't properly know Jesus. If only you had really known the love of God. That type of thing. Understand, these were the prompts that caused me to start digging deeper. And then it became Genesis 1:1 through the end of Revelation. It became an exploration into the history of the religion, what the religion said, the scriptures said, the history or lack of, the science or lack of, the morality or lack of. This was a deep dive. It wasn't just, well, you know, you were doing religion when you should have been having Jesus in your heart. No, I did my due diligence and I reasoned my way out.
Well, for me, I would say I'm religious. I really don't like the whole religion relationship thing. I do believe it's a relationship with Jesus, but I think it's predicated on religion. We all have religion, right?
Hang on.
What I mean
we
by,
all have religion?
Yes.
What's my religion?
Whatever you practice. You can religiously brush your teeth in the morning. You can religiously, whatever you do religiously is religion in my understanding of religion.
What you mean is if someone does something a lot or with fervor or great interest, you would say they are doing that religiously, but you're using it in the colloquial sense. Is that right?
Yes, and that's how I use it in my life as well as being a religious person.
So you are then pretty casual about your religion. Like if you have a hobby, you brush your teeth religiously, you worship your God religiously. Right. It's all kind of a casual.
I worship my God religiously, yeah.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about belief in God, like his existence, like he is there. And maybe there's not a difference for you, but was there like a shift? Because I'm imagining you're believing that there is a creator and then now you're like, no, there's no creator. Does that shift come through just a million, like you said, banging against the glass and then it finally breaks? Or is it just a kind of like, you know what, I'm done with this believing in a God's existence thing?
I'm just not convinced. I am convinced the God of the Christian Bible is bogus. You know, I think that God has been roundly and soundly debunked. The God of Islam, there's no reason to believe any of the Hindu gods, and there are thousands and thousands of them.
Well,
but I myself am not convinced. If you want me to believe in a God, I'm all ears, man. You know, bring me proof, something that we can test and vet and verify. I would want to know that. But right now, I simply do not believe. And that's the definition of atheist. I do not believe in a God.
Right. I believe in a Christian God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in all the stuff that I'm guessing you believed in when you were a radio host. I do, however, agree with you that the God of the Bible, Old and New Testament, all of it, is sometimes what you call bogus, right? There are things that he does and says or whatever that I would see that is bogus. And for me, I'm like, well, obviously it'd be bogus if my little brain exists in this universe and that God exists forever. Whatever he does will probably seem bogus. I don't have a problem with that. So I'm wondering, just because something is bogus, does it mean it does not exist?
Because something is false? Something that is false might actually exist anyway? Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to decide.
So maybe we're using the word bogus differently. I guess bogus for you equals false.
Yeah, I'm using that word colloquially. I'm trying to decide how much of this conversation. I don't do a lot of theist conversations on this broadcast. I usually save those for the Atheist Experience or The Line. So I'm trying to decide how much of this our listeners want to hear. But I'll continue with you for another few minutes. How do you determine which parts of the Bible, Old or New Testament, you accept or reject?
Well, I don't reject anything. There are things that I don't like, or that things, like I said, that may seem bogus to me. Like, for example, I hear a lot of atheists, they'll say, you have to use a pigeon to cure leprosy. And so I was like, whoa, that sounds bogus. Let me look into it. Turns out the leprosy is already healed, but you still have to do the whole pigeon thing. And I'm like, I don't understand that that's bogus, but that doesn't mean I don't think God exists. I mean, I think it's weird, but I don't think that takes away from his existence, if that makes sense.
So pigeon leprosy healing processes are weird, but they jive with your concept of the biblical God, therefore you believe it.
Not necessarily. I think I can understand the ritual. So that the healing is the person is healed, and then you do some type of cleansing thing. And it gets weirder because they use the pigeon to cleanse, and then you take a bath, which I think would cleanse you enough. Why do you need to do the whole pigeon thing, you know? And for me, that's just like, well, that's bogus, but I'm not going to well, God doesn't exist because that's bogus.
You wouldn't read the story about pigeon leprosy cleansing and then bathing and think, wow, that's odd.
I would say that's odd, but I wouldn't be like, because it's odd, that means God doesn't exist.
Uh-huh. So does the conversation ever move from what the story says to can we verify who wrote the story?
Not for me, not at the moment, because I'm not struggling with my belief because I see something bogus. Now, if I was struggling with my belief, then maybe I'd be like, well, who wrote this? Let me see if I can find out. I'm not actively trying to turn away from my belief or disbelieve or, struggle from it, because my belief in God is predicated in already experiencing God, and not like, oh, I had a nice experience and it feels good. It's like the wisdom and all this stuff. It's like if somebody were to ask me what would get you to stop believing in God, it would not be bogus things. It would be more the things that I experience with my wife and my family, interpersonal with different people, would have to be some type of coincidence.
Hang on. I'm not interested as much in what you believe. I want to know how you know. Because if you want to believe, you could be an Islamist and believe. You could be a Hindu and believe. You could be any number of the thousands of religions and believe. If you had seen a story about the pigeon leprosy healing bathing ritual in the Quran, would you have been like, okay, well, I don't need to know who wrote it, where it came from, or how to verify any of it because I just believe? Would you accept that claim from a devout Muslim?
Well, it would depend on what their goal is. But for me, I've already, my view of Islam is a little bit different. So no, I wouldn't care if someone said that. It wouldn't be a matter of accepting or not accepting. I'd be like, okay, sure.
Sure.
Like,
No. Would you
Yeah.
give them credence? Would you give them the same measure of respect that you would think they might give you, right? You're wanting people to hear that, well, I believe it. This is a matter of faith. I'm not trying to test my faith. I will accept it because it's there. And I've got a personal relationship. So if a Muslim came and they told the same story out of the Quran, based on their belief, their devotion to God, acceptance on faith, would you give that equal weight and say, yes, that is just as good, credible, worthy as mine?
Well, no, because I wouldn't. The conversation of their belief wouldn't be on that plane of conversation. Like you asked me about like the stuff in the Old Testament. How do I verify if it's true and all this stuff? Those are just things that I can find bogus, but may not affect my belief in God. It just wouldn't be on that plane of conversation. If they were having a conversation about, so for example, the plane of conversation I would have is maybe on behavior or things like that. Like,
I don't know why you're not answering my
religion?
question. I do not understand why you're not answering my question. And I think for that reason, I'm going to probably draw this to a close. I am struck by your overt statement that you are not interested in challenging your belief to find out if it's true because you believe it to be true. You are unwavering. You will not be moved. No disconfirming evidence is going to budge you in the slightest. And for me, I think that reveals to us that you are not on an honest quest for what is real. I would think even a worthy deity would say, okay, if something happens that totally rocks your world, but there's good evidence to believe it or disbelieve it, you should accept that if you want to live a truthful life. I think that's got a lot of merit, but I'll believe it and no one will ever change my mind. It's not the flex that people think it is. Okay?
Well, I would say that I challenge my belief, but just not on that basis. I think it would be foolish for me to challenge my belief on something is bogus, I don't like it, therefore God doesn't exist.
No.
So I challenge my belief.
Something is bogus. It doesn't make sense. No one knows who wrote the damn story in the first place. It is a product of a superstitious time where people knew nothing about nothing. They didn't know what the stars were. They didn't know what germs were. They thought epilepsy was demon possession. They subjugated women and owned slaves and did human sacrifice and executed children for disobedience and all of these other things. And they told wild tales of giants and flying chariots of fire and men living for 3 days in submerged prison fish and all this stuff. I think you should be able to look at those things and say, there's a problem here. It doesn't make you dishonest or disloyal. It makes you loyal to pursuing the truth. And I think, where did it come from? And does it make sense? Those are legit questions that you and all of us ought to be asking.
No.
Okay?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And for me, those are corridors and doors to open and look into. But even if those things were happen and I found out they were all bogus and false or whatever, I would still believe in an existence of a God. Like, even if those things were false.
Okay, but it would be a different God then. It would be a God other than Yahweh Jesus. So you just toss the Bible and it would be a different deity?
Yeah, it would either be a different deity, or something in me would be shaken to say, well, who am I and what am I doing? Why is it that when I apply the words of Jesus, people are affected in a positive way? My life is affected in a positive way. Something is going on with me. And this is where the questions would come in, where it'd be like, something is weird here. Is it just that I'm really just charismatic? I would try to figure those things. I wouldn't know what to do with that.
Okay. I can't speak to what you would be feeling, but I do know that who was the biologist who said that human beings are emotional bags of meat, and we all have big questions. But the fact remains, if it's not true, it's not true. And if it's not true, as Bertrand Russell has said, we should not believe it. So if the Bible is debunked,
I agree with that.
You can claim Jesus, you can go find another God, whatever, have those conversations. But I think at some point you're going to have them. Honestly, I came to the point where I knew the Bible was absolute bullshit, unverifiable mythology and superstition, often destructive, standing in the way of science and human progress. I walked away. I am not a believer in any deity. I don't hate God. I don't even make the definitive statement that there can be no God. But until one is demonstrated, I remain a theist. Fair enough?
Yeah, I don't think
I'm going to go. I think we've talked enough.
To be debunked.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm just clarifying that I don't know it to be debunked.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
What do I even do with that? Just because it sounds odd and weird and nonsensical and illogical, and I think, holy shit, that makes no sense, doesn't mean in some way, on some level, it doesn't make sense. Who am I to know the mind of God? The more nonsensical it is, the more it must make sense. The Lord works in mysterious ways. God uses the foolish things to shame the wise. I mean, these are examples of how Christianity has evolved mechanisms to defend itself no matter what happens. It's the kind of thing where people say there's evidence all around us. Look at the trees. Look at the birth of a beautiful baby. Look at the pattern. Look at our proximity to the sun. If we were further away, we'd freeze. If we were closer, we'd fry. It must be God. And then if something doesn't make sense, wait a minute, check this out. This is crazy. Or this is offensive, or this is stupid, or this has been debunked. They go, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, or it's a wrong translation, a mistranslation, misunderstanding. You're reading the wrong version. You have to use the Holy Spirit to guide you. There's all of these little sort of mechanisms to insulate the religion from the major question. Is there a good reason to believe it? Is there a really good reason to disbelieve it? And when Christians call and try to sort of, I don't know if he was trying to rescue me or just enlighten me, but now I don't read this stuff and hear this stuff and think, wow, that's bizarre and makes no logical sense. I still believe it. Now I think that makes no logical sense and there's a good reason to not buy it. Let's get back to some songs so wrong. I've got a short list of these. Many were submitted by people in this audience and our followers on Facebook, and I so appreciate those submissions. Bruce Springsteen from the iconic 1985 album Born in the USA, the song I'm on Fire, talks about a little girl. Is he speaking, I don't know, playfully to an adult, or is he talking about a little girl? Hey, little girl, is your daddy home? Did he go away and leave you all alone? I got a bad desire. Oh, 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 I'm on fire. Later in the song, at night, I wake up with the sheets soaking wet and a freight train running through the middle of my head. Only you can cool my desire. Kim brought to my attention the Jethro Tull song from 1970, Aqualung. Sitting on a park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intent, snot running down his nose, greasy fingers smearing shabby clothes. Hey, Aqualung, drying in the cold sun, watching as the frilly panties run. Hey, Aqualung. Jason mentioned the 1966 song Mellow Yellow. It was written and recorded by Scottish singer-songwriter Donovan. And we all believed it was supposed to be about smoking dried banana skins. There was a myth, it's not true, that if you dry a banana skin and you smoke it, you'll get a trip, like an LSD kind of trip. That's not true. Now, full confession, I didn't even know about the banana peel thing until I read about it much, much, much later. So for decades of my life, probably like you, I was just thinking, yellow. Just a happy song. Just call me Mellow Yellow. Yes, that's happy. It's not about banana peel LSD. But then it's not even about that. Donovan said his inspiration came when he was reading a newspaper. On the back of that paper, there was an advertisement for a yellow dildo called Mellow Yellow. What kind of newspaper was Donovan reading? You ever seen a dildo ad on a regular newspaper? I haven't. Born a high, forever to fly. A wind of velocity nil. Born a high, forever to fly. If you want your cup, I will fill. Electrical banana is going to be a sudden craze. Electrical banana is bound to be the very next phase. And of course, the electrical banana is a vibrator. A big, mellow, yellow vibrator. So enjoy singing that song next time you hear that one on the radio. We got more callers to come, more conversations to have, and we will continue next. Before we continue with more of your calls, I've just made this short list of examples of tunes that we didn't realize were maybe creepy, inappropriate, or had a double entendre. The show, of course, is called Songs So Wrong. Here's a song that's not wrong. I just didn't realize what it was really about, and I think most people didn't. This was brought to my attention. Lady Gaga, Poker Face. Now, I used to think that Lady Gaga was just marketing, kind of a studio creation, kind of a Madonna ripoff. And it didn't take long for me to be proven wrong, because she's the real thing. I think she's just a Renaissance woman. She can do whatever she puts her mind to. Massive, massive respect. And the song Poker Face is a terrific tune. She said it was inspired when she was in bed with a guy, but the whole time in her brain, she was thinking about women. So the song is about bisexuality, and the idea is, you know, you're going to read my poker face. I'm not really showing you what I'm really thinking. I've got a poker face. I thought that was interesting. The Beatles, Run for Your Life, from the 1965 album Rubber Soul. Now, this song was written primarily by John Lennon, and it's jacked up. And when you read the lyrics, you start to raise an eyebrow at John Lennon. Well, I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man. You better keep your head, little girl, or I won't know where I am. You better run for your life if you can, little girl. Hide your head in the sand, little girl. Catch you with another man. That's the end, little girl. Well, you know that I'm a wicked guy, and I was born with a jealous mind, and I can't spend my whole life trying just to make you toe the line. Holy shit. John Lennon wrote that? The Imagine guy? You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. That John Lennon wrote the creepy I need to be your boyfriend or I'll kill you song? My dreams shattering. My perceptions of the world just crumbling to dust. Let's talk to Rob at 617. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks. You, Seth.
Appreciate you calling, my friend. Let's go. What's on your mind?
I do a lot of home automation, and I have all this technology set up. But I was wondering, is there a piece of technology, not necessarily crypto or AI or something like that, that you were told made your life easier, but actually just annoys you and makes your life hard?
I'm not sure if I've ever thought about it. Is there a piece of technology that was supposed to make my life easier, but actually make my life hard? Well, actually, there's some software I'm using to try to take calls that always gives me grief called Voice Meter that I've been cussing it recently. I'm guessing you've got an example, Rob, of technology?
So one thing I want to comment on, I wonder if you'll ever do a Discord one of these, because young people use Discord for chat. So that's just a thought. But if you drive any car newer than 2010, capacitive touch buttons on important controls is the one that I would think of for most people.
Please explain capacitive touch to me.
Oh, well, you know how like your smartphone, it knows where your finger is?
Mm-hmm.
So that's using the liquid, like the little bit of sweat and capacitance, like a capacitor happens when you touch the screen. So it's a sensor. Cap touch controls are literally just that, but they don't have a screen underneath them. It's just a little piece of plastic.
See, I would have just said touch screen, but now I can use your term and I can sound much smarter at parties. So for that reason alone, Rob,
there you go.
I'm glad you called. I have noticed I've got a touch screen in my car and everything's now a two-step process. So in order to lower the temperature, I have to hit the little fan icon and then I have to dot the temperature down when it used to be a knob. Would that be an example?
That's a perfect example.
But I sound like my grandparents. These kids today, back when I was a kid, we had analog. We had knobs and handles and shit. And, the technology is just too complicated. And I'm afraid I'm going to start sounding like that. I hope I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends because, I'm not young anymore. I'm 41. And there's like a fine line because if somebody makes something better, you should have to demonstrate that it's better. So if you can't demonstrate that something's better, I think it's fine to complain about it. I don't go on TikTok because I don't want to have another social media platform. But I don't say TikTok's bad. It's just that I don't take the time to do it. So I don't criticize that.
Here's the one that gets me, and this is a little off subject, but you seem like a technical guy. Beyond the fact that I can be talking about anything and an ad will pop up for it on my cell phone in 30 seconds. Do you think that, I've got an iPhone, does a ton of stuff. I'm hitting about 2 years on it, and it's starting to slow down and glitch out. And the conspiracy theorist in me thinks this is planned. Apple is purposefully making my phone slow, laborious. It wants me to cuss at it so that I will drive down to the AT&T store and buy a new phone. Is there any truth to that?
So it's actually it's a very interesting thing. I'll try to answer it quick because there was a thing where Apple was purposely slowing down devices so the battery would last the same time as it would as if it was a new device. But they got in trouble for that, so they made that something you could turn on or off. So that was a few years ago. What they do now is all they have to do is keep adding features. So the new features are going to run better on the newer phone because it's got better hardware. But they're going to put it on the old phone. And then after a few years, that old phone is going to be struggling. Sure, you have the feature, but now it's a problem. That's why Apple loves to have that little notification dot on the update that says, you got an update, and you can't make it go away. So eventually you get annoyed, and you update, and now you have a solar phone.
I mean, I know planned obsolescence is a thing. I mean, I know retailers are not stupid. And then we get into, well, they just don't make them like they used to. And again, I sound like my grandparents, but there may be some truth to that, except it may be more sinister than just lack of quality. It may mean that they want to draw me back to the store every 24 months. I don't know. That's first world problems. But you gave us something to think about. Yeah. Was that it, Rob, or you have something else?
I have one last thought, because, you mentioned getting that recurring revenue from the customer, and especially ads. It's a great phrase. I don't know who said it, so I'm going to steal it. It was basically, if you are not paying for the product, you're the product.
I've heard this about social media. Facebook is free because I'm the product. They're selling my information to advertisers for revenue.
Exactly. And that's why I say, never trust any company that says that they're going to give you something on the internet in perpetuity, and they don't have a revenue stream that's coming from you, because it can go away.
They want our money, Rob, and they'll probably get it. That's awesome.
Exactly. They know.
Thanks for the call, brother. Hang in there. Take care, okay?
Thanks. Have a great one.
I will see you. True story. Another first world problem. When we first moved into this house 7 years ago, we went out. We had to buy appliances, washer, dryer. So we go into the appliance store, and they've got the Workhorse Speed Queen mechanical. Right? They don't have a motherboard in them, and they don't do all the fancy schmancy stuff. They're hardcore, old school, mechanical, no bells, no whistles, no frills. But right next to them, we saw this really slick looking, almost jet engine looking set. And it had the steam refresh, and it had all of these cool little cycles, and, the buttons were like, and they're doing all these things. And we're like, wow, look at all of these options we'll have. And so we decided, fine, we'll spend a little extra and we'll buy the digital, really complicated, fancy schmancy washer dryer. And I've had the repair person out twice or three times in 7 years. And finally, it just went out 3 weeks ago. The washer goes out. I have the repair guy come out, and he's like, well, you're going to have to replace your motherboard again. And did we use all the bells and whistles and fancy dancy? No, we didn't use any of it. We wash and dry. That's all we used. That's all we used. And so we put the unit on Facebook Marketplace. We got them both out of here. We went back to the appliance store, and we bought the basic Speed Queen mechanical. And you know what they do? They wash and they dry. And that's all they do. I don't know if anybody else. And the old school top loaders, I'm just saying, there's something to that. Something to it. Let's see, one or two more. 248, hi, who's this?
Hi, this is Perry.
Perry, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hey, I called in once before, many months ago, and I was talking about my elderly mother who was getting on in age and getting close to death. And what would I say to her if she's evangelical, by the way. Mm-hmm. What would I say to her if she said, you need to accept Jesus Christ? And you said, give me a good piece of advice to tell her, instead of saying that you wouldn't, just say, if there's a heaven, I'll see you on the other side. Well, unfortunately, she passed away at the end of April and never did say anything like that. But we did have a service at her evangelical church, and they really didn't do anything to honor her. Rather, they tried to recruit people. And I didn't know if you had that kind of experience in your past when it came to church services for members of a congregation that passed away, but I just thought it was incredibly appalling.
Perry, we did a whole show on this. I think it was last year, and it's extremely common. someone in the church, or not even in the church, but someone who is adjacent to a religious family, they pass away. There is a service. And instead of honoring and remembering and grieving together, it becomes a Jesus fest. Oh, they loved the Lord, and oh, their life was wonderful because of the Lord. And even if they weren't really religious, they would make them sound like they had been religious. Some funerals have an altar call. You know, if you want to see Tim in heaven someday, if you would like to be reunited with your father or your friend, your mother, your kids, well, you know, come forward and say the prayer of salvation. Honestly, it's offensive. And it happens all of the time. Now, I'm glad your mother had you at the end, and I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry that her funeral was co-opted. Was that your experience? Did they just talk about God and religious shit the whole time?
They did, and then the pastor got extremely offensive, in my opinion, because he made mention of a little story that my parents, who moved quite a bit away from the church and hadn't gone to it in a long time, my dad, who should not have been driving, drove all the way down to their church and handed him his tithe. And then he went off on that. And that just really kind of pissed me off, you know?
Yeah. You know, at my own father's funeral, and I guess it was appropriate because he was the most Christian person I know. And what I mean is he almost surrendered his own person to become a Jesusite. And so at his funeral, I remember everybody went up and they were like, he loved Jesus. Oh, he loved Jesus. Oh, he shared the gospel. He prayed. He was so faithful. He was a man of faith. He loved Jesus. And the whole time I was there, I thought, no one's talking about Dad. And they gave me a slot to be able to go up and say something, which is odd because I kind of wonder if they worried I was going to go, because he and I didn't have a relationship. Things were very contentious. And I can't believe they gave me the 4 minutes they did. And you know what I did? I went up and I'm like, he loved to fish. And I remember when growing up, he used to go out and mow the lawn in his polyester slacks and, and his short sleeve dress shirt. And I remember he used to wear this suit with a big red checkered jacket on it. And I remember he used to tell jokes and he'd laugh at the punchline before he even got the rest of the joke out. No one knew what was going on, but we laughed because it was funny anyway. And all of these anecdotes from who he was as a human being. And you could see the connection on people's faces. And I was pretty much the only one at the entire memorial. The atheist at the Christian funeral was the only person that fleshed out in 3 dimensions who the person was who had died. And it really is indicative of how in the faith, it's not me, but Christ lives in me. I sacrifice my identity for the identity of the God and the group and the cult and the religion. And that way, very insidious. And I grieve that it happened to you, but I hope you're doing okay these days. You hanging in there, my friend?
Yeah, I am. As a matter of fact, we just moved my dad into assisted living, and he started off very against it. And then later, I convinced him that, we were trying to be there to help him, to help family. I mean, he helped his dad. He helped his aunt when they were old. And so he finally agreed, and he is happier than a clam at assisted living. So we're very happy about that. Now it's just the stress of selling his belongings, selling his condo and everything to pay for the care at the assisted living places, because those places are not cheap.
I got you. Well, I'm glad he has you, So, hey, hopefully community and some fun and memories, and maybe sneak in an adult beverage for Dad occasionally. Hopefully it'll be a positive experience. Okay, Perry?
Well, hopefully for me too. I'm looking forward to trying. I'm going to try my best to get out to see you at Baja Con in, I think that's how they say it, in Sarnia.
Yeah, I'll be in Sarnia, Ontario, the second weekend in August for the Blue Water Atheist Humanist Conference with a massively good lineup. And I hope I get a chance to shake your hand and we'll get a picture together and it'll be big fun. Okay.
Same here. Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a bunch. We'll see you. And let's finish with 2 or 3 more songs. Ollie on Facebook said that 1979's My Sharona by the Knack was played by her high school marching band at football games. Check out these lyrics. Oh, my little pretty one, when you're going to give me some time, Sharona? Oh, you make my motor run, gun it coming off the line, Sharona. Never gonna stop, give it up, such a dirty mind. I always get it up for the touch of the younger kind. Neil on Facebook mentioned Jake the Peg, the 1965 tune by Rolf Harris. I'm just going to read this. No further commentary. I'm going to read the lyrics. The day that I born, oh boy, my father nearly died. He couldn't get my nappies on, no matter how he tried. 'Cause I was born with an extra leg. And since that day begun, I had learned to stand on my own 3 feet. Believe me, that's no fun. I'm Jake the Peg, diddle, iddle, iddle, with my extra leg, diddle, iddle, iddle, Wherever I go through rain and snow, the people always let me know there's Jake the Peg with his extra leg. I had a dreadful childhood, really. I suppose I shouldn't moan. Each time they had a 3-legged race, I won it on me own. And also I got popular when came the time for cricket. They used to roll my trousers up and use me for the wicket. And of course, we all know what the extra leg is. It's got never mind. I'm not even going to say it. It's just, and let's do one more real fast. Susan had mentioned Neil Diamond, 1967, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. This went to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the time. Please come take my hand. Girl, you'll be a woman soon. Soon, you'll need a man. And that takes us all the way back to this obsession with underage girls. And I'm sure you can think of 100 other examples. Just leave them in the comments. I'm going to go and prep for my trip this weekend to Secular Hub in Denver, Colorado, and find some music, probably instrumental. Have a great week. I'll see you later.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming Free Thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.